The council chamber was the largest room Jake Morrison had ever seen. It stretched for what seemed like miles, with representatives from hundreds of alien species seated in circular tiers that rose toward the domed ceiling. Lights from different stars filtered through the transparent dome, casting strange shadows across the assembled delegates. Jake stood alone at the human podium, his hands clasped behind his back. He wore his formal diplomatic uniform, dark blue with silver trim. At 46 years old, his hair was starting to gray at the temples, but his posture was still that of the Marine he'd been 20 years ago. The Vryn spokesman, Ambassador Keyleth, rose from his seat 3 tiers above. He was tall and thin, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. When he spoke, his voice echoed through translation devices that every delegate wore. The Vryn Collective brings forth a formal declaration, Keyleth announced. His tone was cold and sharp. The species known as humanity has violated 17 territorial agreements. They have expanded into 47 star systems that were claimed by elder races. They have ignored warnings. They have shown aggression and disrespect. Jake listened without moving. His face showed nothing. Therefore, Keyleth continued, the Vryn Collective, representing 7 united species and controlling 400 star systems, hereby declares a state of war against humanity. We demand immediate withdrawal from all contested territories. You have 30 standard days to comply. Failure will result in total military action against all human colonies and installations. Well, the chamber erupted in noise. Hundreds of aliens began speaking at once, their translation devices creating a storm of overlapping voices. Some sounded shocked. Others sounded pleased. A few sounded frightened. Jake Morrison did something that nobody expected. He laughed. It wasn't a small laugh or a nervous chuckle. It was a deep, genuine laugh that came from his chest. The sound cut through the chaos in the chamber. Slowly, the other voices fell silent. Every alien eye turned toward the human delegate. Keyleth's skin flashed darker colors. You find this amusing, human? Jake took a breath and composed himself. A smile still played at the corners of his mouth. I'm sorry, he said. It's just that you clearly have no idea what you've just done. We have declared war on a primitive species that refuses to know its place, Keyleth snapped. No, Jake said quietly. His voice was calm but carried clearly through the chamber. You've declared war on Earth. On humanity. And that tells me you haven't done your homework. He walked forward a few steps, his hands still behind his back. Tell me, Ambassador Keyleth, have you ever visited Earth? I have no need to visit primitive worlds. That's a shame, Jake said. Because if you had, you'd know what kind of world produces humans. You'd understand what you're up against. Another alien spoke up, a small creature with too many eyes. Is this a threat? Human? Jake turned to look at the speaker. No, friend. It's a warning. There's a difference. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many delegates as he could. Most of you come from what we call garden worlds. Nice places. Comfortable gravity. Gentle weather. Your ancestors evolved in relative peace. He paused. Earth is not a garden world. Earth is classified in our records as a Class 12 deathworld. The gravity is crushing by your standards. The weather is violent. The native life forms are engineered by evolution to kill and survive. Humanity didn't become the dominant species because we were the strongest or the fastest. We became dominant because we were too stubborn to die. Keyleth made a dismissive gesture. Primitive boasting. Your species has been in space for barely 2 centuries. The Vryn Collective has ruled the stars for 15,000 years. And in those 15,000 years, Jake said, have you ever fought a war? A real war, I mean. Not a territorial dispute or a trade conflict. A war where your entire species faced extinction. The chamber was silent. Humanity has fought those wars, Jake continued. Against each other. Against our own planet. Against diseases and disasters you can't imagine. We've nearly wiped ourselves out a dozen times, and every single time, we survived. We adapted. We got stronger. He pulled out a small data device from his pocket. I'm sending a message to our fleet now. Just a simple update. They'll receive it in about 6 hours due to the distance. Keyleth's skin flashed red. You threaten us in this sacred chamber? I'm not threatening anyone, Jake said calmly. He pressed a button on the device. I'm just letting my people know that you've declared war. They'll want to know. They'll want to prepare. And, prepare for what? Another alien asked. You are one species. We are 7. United and powerful. Jake looked sad for a moment. Prepare to show you exactly what a Deathworlder species is capable of when you threaten them. He turned back to Keyleth. You wanted our attention. Ambassador, you wanted humanity to take you seriously. Congratulations. You're about to get exactly what you asked for. He walked back to his podium and sat down, crossing his legs casually. I'll remain here at the station to continue diplomatic functions. I'm sure we'll have much to discuss in the coming days. Keyleth seemed thrown off balance. You're not fleeing? Not running back to your homeworld to beg for mercy? Why would I do that? Jake asked. I'm perfectly safe here. The Galactic Council station is neutral territory. Besides, I have complete faith in my species. In about 36 hours, you're going to understand why. The chamber remained in stunned silence. Nobody quite knew what to make of the humans' reaction. Declaring war was supposed to make the primitive species panic. But Jake Morrison sat calmly at his podium, looking almost relaxed. Commander Lisa Hughes approached him from the side entrance. She was his military liaison, a sharp woman in her 30s with short blonde hair. Sir, she whispered, shouldn't we evacuate? Jake shook his head slightly. No need, Commander. The Vryn made their choice. Now we make ours. He looked up at Keyleth, who was still standing, looking uncertain for the first time. One more thing, Jake called out. When this is over, and you realize what you've done, I hope you'll remember that we tried to warn you. We didn't want this, but you asked for war with humanity. He smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. And humanity has never lost a war it needed to win. The session was adjourned in chaos. As delegates filed out, many of them gave Jake worried looks. A few approached him privately, asking if he needed asylum or protection. He thanked them politely, but declined every offer. As the chamber emptied, Lisa sat down next to him. Do you think they understand? Jake watched Keyleth leave through the far exit. No, not yet. But they will. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a command center that had been built during Earth's last global war, Admiral Marcus Blake stood before a wall of screens. Each screen showed different parts of human space. Ships, stations, colonies, all going about their daily business. For now, the Admiral was 60 years old, but looked younger. Daily exercise and clean living had kept him sharp. His uniform was crisp. His gray hair, cut military short. He'd spent 30 years in the defense fleet, rising from a simple pilot to commander of Earth's entire military force. A message alert flashed on his personal screen. It was from Jake Morrison, encrypted with the highest level codes. Blake read it quickly, his expression never changing. Then, he read it again. Get me President Walsh, he said to his aide. Priority 1. 10 minutes later, the president's face appeared on the main screen. Catherine Walsh was in her office in Geneva, morning light streaming through the windows behind her. She was a stern woman in her mid-50s with iron-gray hair and sharp eyes. Admiral, she said, I'm guessing this is about the Vryn. You've heard already? I have sources, Walsh said. But I want to hear it from you. Blake brought up Jake's message on the shared screen. Ambassador Morrison sent this 30 minutes ago. The Vryn Collective has formally declared war. They're demanding we abandon 47 systems in 30 days. The president was quiet for a moment. What's Jake's assessment? He thinks they're serious. He also thinks they have no idea what they're dealing with. Do they? Blake smiled slightly. No, ma'am. They don't. Within an hour, the president had convened an emergency council. Military leaders, scientific advisors, and diplomatic staff all connected through secure channels. Blake was given the floor first. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began. "We've wargamed this scenario 100 times. An elder race decides humanity is getting too big for its britches and tries to slap us down. We knew it would happen eventually." He brought up tactical displays. The Vryn Collective controls 7 species and 400 systems. Their combined fleet numbers, approximately 8,000 warships. They have numerical superiority over us by about 4 to 1. Someone on the council gasped. Blake held up a hand. "However, numbers don't tell the whole story." "Dr. Shaw? If you'd explain?" Dr. Henry Shaw was the chief xenobiologist for Earth's space program. He was a thin man, with wild hair, who looked like he'd slept in his lab coat. He probably had. "Right, yes," Shaw said, pulling up biological data. "I've been studying Vryn physiology since we first made contact. They evolved on a world with 0.7 Earth gravity. Their atmospheric pressure is about 60% of ours. Their bone density is roughly half that of a human." He switched to comparative images. "In practical terms, a Vryn warrior in peak physical condition would struggle to stand upright on Earth. Our gravity would exhaust them in minutes. Their ships are built light because they don't need the structural integrity we require. Their weapons are designed for their physiology, not ours." "What about the other 6 species in the collective?" someone asked. Shaw shrugged. "Variations on the same theme. The strongest of them comes from a 0.9 gravity world, still lighter than Earth. None of them are deathworlders." "Afted," Blake took over again. "Our ships are built to Earth standards. That means they're overbuilt by galactic norms. Our hulls are thicker. Our shields are stronger. Our weapons hit harder. We designed everything, assuming we'd face someone tougher than us someday. Turns out, we might be the toughest thing in this part of space." President Walsh leaned forward on her screen. "What are our options?" "We can try continued diplomacy," Blake said. "But the Vryn have made a public declaration. Backing down would cost them face in the council. I don't think they'll reverse course, unless we force them to. And if we fight?" Blake didn't hesitate. "We'll win. The question is, how decisively, and at what cost?" The president thought for a moment. "I want a measured response. We show them what they're dealing with. But we don't start by glassing their worlds. We're not conquerors." "Understood." "Ma'am, how long until they make their move?" "Intelligence suggests they'll test us within 48 hours, Blake said. "Probably a strike on one of our border colonies. Something they think will be an easy victory." Walsh nodded. "Put the fleet on alert. Prepare defensive positions. But Marcus, when they come, I want you to make it clear that they've made a terrible mistake. Show them what humanity can do." "Yes, ma'am." The meeting continued for another hour, working out details and contingencies. When it finally ended, Blake sat alone in his command center, looking at the screens showing peaceful, human colonies. His aide approached cautiously. Blake typed out a series of commands. All across human space, warships began powering up. Crews that had been on leave were recalled. Weapons systems that hadn't been fired in months went through diagnostic checks. The entire military machine of humanity began to wake up. Captain Ryan Cooper received his orders aboard the ship Valiant. He was a young captain, only 35, but he'd proven himself in a dozen small conflicts. The Valiant was humanity's newest warship, fresh from the shipyards, and equipped with the latest technology. "All hands to battle stations," Cooper announced over the ship's intercom. "This is not a drill. We've received word that the Vryn Collective has declared war on Earth. We're being deployed to New Haven Colony. Estimated time of arrival, 18 hours. His crew moved with practiced efficiency. The Valiant had a complement of 200 personnel. Small by galactic standards but packed with enough firepower to take on ships 10 times its size. Cooper's first officer, a woman named Linda Grant, appeared on his command screen. "Course laid in, sir. All systems green. Take us out," Cooper ordered. "And Lieutenant Grant, make sure the crew understands what we're dealing with. The Vryn don't know about Deathworlders yet. We're going to educate them." Back on Earth, Jake Morrison's message had been broadcast to every human ship and station. People read it with a mixture of anger and grim determination. Humanity had spent 200 years exploring space peacefully. They'd tried to be good neighbors to the alien species they'd encountered. They'd followed the rules, respected boundaries, and worked toward cooperation. And now someone had declared war on them. In homes and bars across human space, the same conversation was happening. Civilians who'd never thought about military service suddenly understood that their safety was at stake. Veterans pulled out old uniforms, checking to see if they still fit. Factories that built commercial ships began retooling for military production. Humanity had been caught off guard before, many times in its history. But humans had a particular talent for adapting to threats. When pushed, they pushed back harder. Admiral Blake watched his screens as the fleet assembled. Ships from a dozen colonies converged on strategic points. Defensive stations activated weapons that had never been fired in anger. And somewhere out there, the Vryn Collective was preparing their attack. Confident in their superiority, Blake almost felt sorry for them. Almost. They'd made their choice. They'd declared war on a species that had been forged in the fires of the most dangerous planet in known space. Now they'd learn what that meant. He opened a channel to all ships. "This is Admiral Blake to all vessels. You know your orders. Defend our people, protect our worlds, and show the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth." The responses came back quickly. Every ship, every station, every soldier. All of them ready. All of them determined. Humanity was going to war. The planet New Haven hung in space like a blue marble. It was a mining colony, home to about 50,000 humans who extracted rare minerals from the asteroid belt that surrounded it. The colony had been established 15 years ago and had never seen any trouble. That was about to change. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez sat in the cockpit of her fighter, waiting. She was 28 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and sharp brown eyes that missed nothing. She'd been flying fighters for 6 years and was one of the best pilots in the fleet. Her fighter was docked inside the Valiant, along with 23 others. The ship had dropped out of faster-than-light travel 6 hours ago and had been sitting in orbit around New Haven ever since, waiting. "All pilots, this is Captain Cooper." The voice came through her helmet. "Long-range sensors have detected multiple contacts entering the system. Count is 50 ships, all matching Vryn signatures. They'll be in weapons range in approximately 15 minutes. Maya felt her heartbeat quicken, but her hands remained steady on the controls. This was it. First contact with an enemy force. "We're outnumbered 50 to 1. Cooper continued. His voice was calm, almost casual. "But remember your training. We're built tougher, we hit harder, and we've got home field advantage. The colonists are counting on us. Don't let them down." Maya checked her weapons systems for the 10th time. Everything was green. Her fighter carried missiles that could punch through armor, designed for ships 3 times its size. Her guns could fire at rates that would melt most alien weapon systems. And her reactor produced enough power to keep her shields running at full strength for hours. On the Valiant's bridge, Captain Cooper watched the incoming Vryn fleet on his displays. 50 ships, all of them larger than the Valiant. By galactic standards, this should have been a massacre. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Vryn fleet," his communications officer reported. "Put it through." The screen flickered and showed a Vryn commander. This one had darker skin than Keyleth, with patterns that swirled across his face. His name was Zorath, according to the translation software. "Human vessel," Zorath said. "You are ordered to stand down and surrender immediately. New Haven colony is now under Vryn control. Resistance will be met with overwhelming force. Cooper smiled slightly. Negative, Vryn Commander. New Haven is a human colony under Earth's protection. You are ordered to withdraw immediately. You have 5 minutes to comply. Zorath's patterns flashed bright red. You dare? We have 50 warships. You have one. Surrender, or be destroyed. 4 minutes and 30 seconds, Cooper said calmly. The screen went dark. Zorath had cut the connection. All hands, battle stations, Cooper ordered. Helm, bring us about. Put our bow toward their lead ship. Weapons. I want firing solutions on the first 10 targets. Point defense systems to maximum, shields to full power. The Valiant turned gracefully in space. For a moment, it hung there. 1 ship against 50. Sir, they're opening fire, the tactical officer reported. The first missiles and energy beams came streaking across space. There were hundreds of them, enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. They slammed into the Valiant's shields in a brilliant display of light and energy. The ship didn't even shudder. Shields at 96%, the tactical officer said, sounding surprised. Cooper nodded. Return fire. Let's see how their shields handle our weapons. The Valiant's main guns opened up. They were railguns, magnetically accelerated projectiles that moved at a significant fraction of light speed. 3 rounds hit the lead Vryn ship in quick succession. The first round collapsed its shields completely. The second punched through its hull. The third went through the ship from bow to stern and came out the other side. The Vryn ship exploded. Target destroyed, the tactical officer reported. His voice filled with awe. The Vryn fleet seemed to hesitate. Then they all opened fire at once. The space around the Valiant filled with weapons fire. Energy beams, missiles, plasma torpedoes, everything the Vryn had. The Valiant's point defense systems came to life. Automated turrets tracked and destroyed incoming missiles with computer-precise accuracy. The shields absorbed the energy weapons, their power barely dropping. The ship's armor, designed to handle the stress of high-gravity maneuvers, shrugged off everything that got through, and the Valiant kept firing. Targets 2 and 3 destroyed. Target 4 disabled. Target 5 destroyed. The battle lasted 12 minutes. The Valiant moved through the Vryn formation like a shark through a school of fish. Every shot from the human ship was devastating. Every hit it took was barely noticed. When it was over, 23 Vryn ships were destroyed outright. 19 more were disabled, their engines dead and life support failing. The remaining 8 had turned and fled, broadcasting surrender signals. Cease fire, Cooper ordered. Launch rescue shuttles to the disabled ships. We'll take their crews prisoner. Maya and her squadron finally got the launch order, but not to fight. They flew escort for the rescue shuttles, protecting them as they approached the damaged Vryn vessels. Inside one of the disabled ships, Maya could see Vryn crew members through the windows. They looked terrified. Many of them were injured. Their ship was dying around them, and they knew it. The human rescue teams cut through the hull and went inside. They brought medical supplies, portable life support, and emergency power units. They treated the wounded Vryn with the same care they'd give to human casualties. Commander Zorath was pulled from his destroyed flagship, badly injured but alive. He was brought aboard the Valiant and taken to the medical bay. Human doctors worked on him for 3 hours, using techniques and medicines far beyond what Vryn medical science could provide. When he woke up, he found himself in a clean hospital bed, his injuries treated, and his pain managed. A human doctor stood nearby, checking monitors. "Welcome back, Commander," the doctor said. She was an older woman with kind eyes. "You had some internal bleeding and a fractured spine. We've repaired the damage. You'll need a few days of rest, but you should make a full recovery." Zorath stared at her. "You saved me? Why?" "Because you were injured and needed help," the doctor said simply. "We're not monsters, Commander. We're just humans." Captain Cooper visited the medical bay later. He looked at the rows of Vryn prisoners. all receiving medical care. Many of them watched him with fear in their eyes. "You'll be returned to your people once we've arranged a prisoner exchange," Cooper told them. "You'll be treated fairly, and according to the Galactic Convention on Warfare. You have my word on that." Zoreth managed to speak, his voice weak. "We were told you were primitives. Savages. Easy to defeat." Cooper pulled up a chair and sat down next to the Vryn commander's bed. "Let me tell you about Earth, Commander. About the world that made us. Earth has killed more humans than any war we've ever fought. Diseases, disasters, predators, climate extremes. For 300,000 years, Earth tried to wipe us out, and for 300,000 years, we refused to die." He leaned back. "We built ships strong because we come from a high-gravity world where weak structures collapse. We built weapons powerful because we hunted creatures that could kill us with a single strike. We developed medicine because Earth's diseases would have exterminated us otherwise. Everything about us was shaped by survival on the most dangerous planet we've ever found." Zoreth was quiet for a long moment. "We made a mistake." "Yes," Cooper said. "You did. But you're still alive. And so are your crew. That's something. When you get home, tell your leaders what you saw here. Tell them that humanity didn't want this war. But if forced to fight, we'll win." News of the battle spread through both human and galactic space at the speed of light. On Earth, people celebrated. In the Vryn Collective, there was shock and disbelief. On the Galactic Council Station, ambassadors from hundreds of species began reviewing everything they knew about humans. Jake Morrison received the battle report in his quarters. He read it carefully, then sent a message to Captain Cooper. It was simple and to the point. "Well done. But this is just the beginning." He was right. The Vryn Collective had committed only a tiny fraction of their fleet to the attack on New Haven. They had thousands more ships, millions of soldiers, and the pride of 15,000 years of dominance. They wouldn't surrender after one defeat, but they had learned something important. They'd learned that humanity wasn't easy prey, and somewhere in the Vryn High Command, someone was starting to wonder if they'd made a terrible, terrible mistake. The Vryn Collective's response to the defeat at New Haven was swift and massive. If one fleet couldn't handle the humans, they'd send 10. If human ships were stronger, they'd overwhelm them with numbers. The collective mobilized thousands of warships and called up millions of soldiers from all 7 member species. 3 weeks after the first battle, they launched a coordinated assault on 3 human colonies simultaneously. It was the largest military operation the collective had mounted in 1,000 years. They were certain it would crush human resistance and bring Earth to its knees. They were wrong. On the planet Armstrong's world, General Patricia Hayes stood on a hilltop and watched the Vryn landing craft descend through the atmosphere. There were hundreds of them, dropping troops and equipment in a massive invasion force. Intelligence estimated 50,000 Vryn soldiers were about to land. Hayes was 52 years old, a career Marine who'd served in conflicts across human space. She was short and stocky, with gray hair cut close to her scalp and eyes that had seen too much combat. She commanded the garrison on Armstrong's world, a force of 2,000 Marines. 50,000 against 2,000, her second in command, Colonel Danny Walsh, said. "Not good odds." Hayes smiled slightly. "Depends on who's doing the counting. How's the gravity treating our visitors?" Armstrong's world had 1.2 Earth gravities. For humans, it was heavy, but manageable. For Vryn, it was crushing. "Observation drones show they're struggling," Walsh reported. "They're using mechanical assists just to walk. Their armor is weighing them down." "Good," Hayes said. "Let them land. Let them get spread out." The Vryn established a landing zone in a broad valley. Their commander, a veteran general named Kelrith, set up his headquarters in an armored command vehicle. He watched his troops deploy with satisfaction. 50,000 soldiers, the largest ground force the collective had fielded in centuries. The humans couldn't possibly stand against such numbers. His confidence lasted until nightfall. Armstrong's world had a 28-hour day-night cycle. When the sun set, it got dark. Really dark. The planet's atmosphere scattered less light than most worlds, and there were no moons to provide ambient illumination. For the Vryn, who came from a world with 3 moons and excellent night vision, this should have been fine. Except Armstrong's world's darkness was absolute in a way they'd never experienced. Their night vision, adapted for their bright homeworld, was nearly useless here. For humans, it was just another night. General Hayes gave the order at midnight local time. All units, commence operation midnight run. 2,000 Marines moved through the darkness like ghosts. They wore night vision gear that turned the blackness into a green-tinted day. They moved in small teams, hitting Vryn positions from unexpected directions. The Vryn tried to respond, but they couldn't see their attackers. They fired blindly into the darkness, hitting their own troops as often as the enemy. Their thermal sensors were confused by Armstrong's world's ambient heat. Their motion detectors went crazy, trying to track enemies who moved like predators, silent and deadly. Sergeant Frank Miller led a squad of 12 Marines. They approached a Vryn ammunition depot from downwind, moving slowly and carefully. The Vryn guards were clustered together, their weapons pointing in all directions, clearly frightened. "Poor bastards can't see a thing," one of Miller's Marines whispered. "Stay focused," Miller replied. "Remember, we want to disable, not destroy. We need that ammunition." They moved in fast. The Vryn guards never knew what hit them. Within 30 seconds, all 12 guards were unconscious, taken down by stun weapons and hand-to-hand combat. The Marines secured the depot and called for extraction. All across the valley, similar raids were happening. Human teams struck at supplies, communications, and command posts. They moved through the Vryn formations like smoke, appearing and vanishing before effective response could be organized. By dawn, the Vryn had lost a third of their supplies, had dozens of officers captured, and their troops were exhausted and demoralized. They'd been fighting shadows all night and had nothing to show for it. General Kelrith was furious. How can 2,000 primitives defeat 50,000 collective soldiers? His aide, a younger Vryn, hesitated before answering. "Sir, our troops are struggling with the gravity. They're tired after just a few hours of activity. The humans seem unaffected, and they can see in the dark somehow. They have technology we don't understand." "Then we adapt," Kelrith snapped. "We use our orbital support. We'll blast them from space if we have to." But when they tried to use their ships for orbital bombardment, they found human fighters waiting. Maya Rodriguez and her squadron had been reinforced and now controlled the skies above Armstrong's world. Every Vryn ship that tried to descend into firing range was met with missiles and railgun fire. The ground battle continued for 2 days. General Hayes used tactics that exploited every advantage her Marines had. They fought during storms that grounded Vryn aircraft. They attacked during mealtimes when Vryn soldiers were clustered together. They used the heavy gravity to their advantage, forcing the enemy to fight uphill or across broken terrain. On the second day, Hayes led a direct assault on the Vryn command post. Her Marines came in fast, using armored vehicles that could handle the rough terrain better than anything the Vryn had. They breached the perimeter in 3 places simultaneously. General Kelrith found himself facing a human soldier for the first time up close. Sergeant Miller stood in the entrance to his command vehicle, wearing armor that looked impossibly heavy. The human was shorter than Kelrith but twice as wide, all muscle and machinery. "General Kelrith," Miller said, his voice calm despite having just fought through 20 guards. "I'm here to offer you terms of surrender." "I will never surrender to primitives," Kelrith shouted. Miller sighed. "Sir, you've lost a third of your force. Your supply lines are cut. You can't get orbital support. And my general is about to bring in another 1,000 Marines. You can surrender now, or you can watch your soldiers die for a war you can't win. Your choice." Kelrith looked around his command vehicle, His staff were all staring at the human soldier with fear. Outside, he could hear the sounds of battle dying down. The humans had won. Somehow, impossibly, they'd won. "I want to speak to your general," Kelrith said quietly. General Hayes arrived 30 minutes later. She looked at the Vryn general with something like pity. "General Kelrith, I'm offering you and your troops safe surrender. You'll be treated according to the Galactic Convention. Your wounded will receive medical care. Your soldiers will be fed and housed properly until prisoner exchange can be arranged." "How?" Kelrith asked. "How did you defeat us?" Hayes pulled up a chair and sat down. "Because we come from hell, General. Not literally, but close enough. Earth is a death world. It tried to kill our species every single day for hundreds of thousands of years. We evolved to survive in high gravity, to hunt in the dark, to endure conditions that would kill most species. You brought 50,000 soldiers adapted for garden worlds to fight 2,000 deathworlders on a planet that's close to our natural environment." She leaned forward. "You never had a chance. Not because you're weak or we're cruel, but because evolution made us into something different. We're built for this." The surrender was formalized within hours. 50,000 Vryn soldiers laid down their arms. Human medical teams treated over 10,000 wounded. Human Logistics Corps provided food and water to an army that had lost its supply chain. And all across the galaxy, other species watched and learned. Humanity had defeated a force 25 times its size. The humans had shown mercy to their defeated enemies. And they'd done it all while making it look almost easy. On the Galactic Council Station, ambassadors from neutral species began approaching Jake Morrison. They wanted to know more about Earth, about human capabilities, about whether humanity intended to conquer the galaxy now that they'd proven their strength. Jake's answer was always the same. "We don't want to conquer anyone. We just want to live in peace. But if someone threatens us, threatens our people, we'll do what's necessary to survive. That's what deathworlders do. We survive." The war was far from over. But the shape of it was becoming clear. The Vryn Collective had military superiority in numbers. But humanity had something more important. They had the strength of a species forged in the fires of the most dangerous planet in known space, and that was making all the difference. 6 weeks after the Vryn Collective declared war on humanity, their military forces were in ruins. They'd lost 78% of their warships. Their ground forces had been defeated on every planet where they'd engaged human troops. Their economy was collapsing under the strain of total war mobilization. And worst of all, their casualties numbered in the hundreds of thousands, while humanity had lost fewer than 300 personnel. The war wasn't just going badly. It was a catastrophe. Elder Matriarch Selene sat in her private chambers on the Vryn homeworld, reading casualty reports. She was ancient by Vryn standards, nearly 200 years old, and had led the collective for 50 of those years. In all that time, she'd never faced a crisis like this. A young aide entered quietly. "Matriarch, Admiral Karen Scott's fleet has entered orbit around our world." Selene felt her patterns darken with resignation. "How many ships?" 300, Matriarch. They're not attacking. They're just waiting." Selene looked out her window at the night sky. She could see the lights of the human fleet up there, hanging in space like new stars. Any one of them could probably destroy her palace from orbit. Together, they could reduce her entire world to ash. But they weren't firing. They were just waiting. "They want to talk?" Selene said softly. "They've won, and they want to talk, instead of killing us." She turned to her aide. "Send a message to the human ambassador. Tell him I'm ready to meet." Jake Morrison received the message in his quarters on the Galactic Council Station. He'd been waiting for this moment since the war began. He sent back a simple response. He'd meet with the matriarch, but only face to face, on neutral ground. They chose a small moon orbiting a dead world halfway between the Vryn homeworld and the Council Station. Both sides brought minimal security. When Jake's shuttle landed, he was met by Vryn guards who looked exhausted and defeated. Celine waited for him in a simple meeting room. She was tall and elegant, her patterns swirling with complex emotions. When Jake entered, she rose to greet him. "Ambassador Morrison," she said. "Thank you for coming." Jake nodded respectfully. "Matriarch Celine, I'm glad you reached out. Neither of us wanted this war to continue." They sat across from each other at a plain table. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Celine broke the silence. "Why?" she asked. "You've won. Your fleet surrounds my homeworld. You could demand anything. You could conquer us, enslave us, exterminate us. Why are you showing mercy?" Jake leaned back in his chair. "Because we know what it's like to be afraid. We know what it's like to face extinction. And we know that winning doesn't mean you have to destroy your enemy. We declared war on you," Celine said. "We threatened your people. We attacked your colonies." "Yes, you did," Jake agreed. "And you paid a terrible price for that mistake. You've lost nearly your entire military. Your economy is in ruins. Your people are terrified. I think that's punishment enough." He pulled out a data tablet. "Here are our terms for peace. We're not demanding territory. We're not asking for reparations. We're not going to occupy your worlds. We want 3 things. First, formal recognition that our expansion into the disputed systems was legitimate. Second, a guarantee of non-aggression between our peoples. Third, an exchange of ambassadors and the establishment of diplomatic relations." Celine looked at the terms, her patterns shifting through colors Jake couldn't interpret. "That's all? After everything we did?" "That's all," Jake confirmed. "We want peace, Matriarch. We always did. We're not conquerors. We're just trying to survive and grow like every other species." "But you're so much stronger than us," Celine said quietly. "Your ships, your soldiers, your technology. How did we not know?" Jake stood and walked to the window. He could see stars through it. Thousands of them. Each one potentially hosting worlds and species. "Because you never asked the right questions. You looked at how long we'd been in space and assumed we were primitive. You looked at our numbers and assumed we were weak. But you never looked at where we came from. He turned back to face her. "Let me tell you about Earth, Matriarch. Let me tell you about the world that made humanity." For the next hour, Jake explained. He showed her images of Earth's weather systems, massive storms that could destroy cities. He showed her Earth's geological activity, volcanoes and earthquakes that reshaped continents. He showed her Earth's predators, creatures that evolved to hunt and kill with terrifying efficiency. "This is the world that made us," Jake said. "For 300,000 years, Earth tried to kill humanity. Disease, disaster, predators, climate change, extinction events. We survived all of it. Not because we were the strongest or the fastest, but because we were adaptable, because we were stubborn, because we refused to give up." He pulled up images of human history. Wars, plagues, famines, all the horrors that humanity had inflicted on itself. And when Earth wasn't trying to kill us, we turned on each other. We've fought wars that killed millions. We've created weapons that could destroy our entire planet. "Then why didn't you out?" Selena asked. "How did you survive?" "Because we learned," Jake said simply. "Every disaster taught us something. Every war showed us the cost of violence. Every near extinction made us more determined to survive. We're not strong because we wanted to be. We're strong because weakness meant death." Celine was quiet for a long time. "We evolved on a garden world," she finally said. "Gentle climate, few predators, abundant resources. Our history has conflicts, but nothing like what you describe. We became spacefaring because we were curious, not because we were desperate. And that's fine," Jake said. "There's nothing wrong with evolving on a peaceful world, but it means you don't understand what we are. We're deathworlders. Every human carries the legacy of 300,000 years of survival on the most dangerous planet we've ever found. That's why you showed mercy, Selene said, understanding dawning. Because you know what it's like to lose, to be afraid, to face destruction. Jake nodded. Exactly. We don't enjoy war, matriarch. We're actually pretty tired of it. But when forced to fight, we're very, very good at it. Because Earth trained us for 300,000 years. The peace treaty was signed 3 days later. The Vryn Collective formally surrendered and accepted all of humanity's terms. The war was over. But the real changes were just beginning. Word of the war spread through the Galactic Council at the speed of light. Every species suddenly wanted to know more about Earth, about humans, about these deathworlders who'd appeared among them. Ambassadors who'd ignored Jake for years suddenly sought meetings. Scientists requested permission to study Earth's biosphere. Military strategists wanted to understand human combat doctrine. The Council convened an emergency session to discuss humanity's status. Jake stood before the assembled delegates, the same chamber where the Vryn had declared war 6 weeks earlier. We've reviewed all available data on your homeworld, the Council speaker announced. We've consulted with experts in evolutionary biology, planetary science, and military analysis. The Council has reached a unanimous decision. Jake waited, his face calm. Humanity is hereby granted permanent Council membership. Earth is classified as a Class 12 Deathworld, the highest rating in our system. And we formally request that humanity consider providing military advisors and defensive support to Council members who request it. The chamber erupted in approval. Hundreds of alien species showing their support in hundreds of different ways. Jake bowed slightly. On behalf of humanity, we accept Council membership. We'll be happy to share our knowledge and provide support where requested. But let me be clear about something. The chamber fell silent. We didn't want to be warriors, Jake said. We didn't ask to be the strong ones. We'd much rather be farmers, artists, scientists, explorers. But if the galaxy needs defenders, if there are threats that other species can't face alone, then yes, we'll help. Because that's what we do. We survive. And we help others survive too. He paused. But we'll do it on our terms. We won't be conquerors. We won't be bullies. We'll be partners and allies. We'll share our strength, but we'll also learn from your wisdom. Because for all our military power, we're still young. We still have much to learn. The applause that followed was thunderous. 3 months later, Jake Morrison stood in a park on Earth, watching children play. The grass was green, the sky was blue, and the sun was warm on his face. It was a perfect day. His communicator buzzed. It was Admiral Blake. Jake, we've received 17 formal requests from military advisors. 12 species want human security forces. And the Council has asked us to lead the response to a pirate threat in the Outer Rim. Jake smiled. What did President Walsh say? She approved all of it. We're going to be busy. Jake watched a little girl run past, laughing as her father chased her. Yeah, we are. But Marcus, make sure we don't forget who we are. We're not just warriors. We're humans. We're the children of Earth. And Earth taught us that survival isn't just about being strong. It's about knowing when to fight and when to show mercy. I know, Blake said. That's why they need us. Jake ended the call and sat down on a bench. He thought about the Vryn, about all the species that feared humanity now. He thought about the responsibility that had been placed on Earth's shoulders. Humanity hadn't wanted to be the galaxy's warriors. They'd wanted peace, exploration, and knowledge. But the galaxy had needed something else. It needed someone who understood the cost of war. Someone who could fight when necessary but who valued peace. Someone strong enough to defend the weak, but wise enough not to abuse that strength. And somehow, impossibly, that someone was humanity, the children of Earth, the deathworlders who'd learned mercy the hard way. A message came through on his communicator. It was from Matriarch Selene, simple and direct. Thank you for showing us that strength and kindness are not opposites. The Vryn people will never forget the mercy you showed us. We hope to one day be worthy allies." Jake smiled and looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, among the stars, other species were learning what humanity was. Not conquerors, not monsters, just survivors who'd learned that the greatest strength wasn't in defeating your enemies, but in knowing when not to. Earth had taught them well.